Hello and welcome to this webinar on safeguarding Microsoft Teams with NetSupport and Cloud Design Box. Very happy to have our partners on the call today, NetSupport. So we've got Dan Kingsley, the Channel Sales Manager from NetSupport. Hi, Dan.
Hi, how are you? All right?
Yeah, very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I think it's going to be a really interesting topic. I know one that comes up on a regular basis with the people that we speak to, especially when they're using Microsoft Teams. So yeah, really excited to see that shortly. We've also got Darren on the call as well. Hi, Darren.
Afternoon, everyone. Very excited to see what Dan's got to show us today.
And we've also got Joanne on the questions as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to click on the little speech bubble mark that you'll see in the top right and send us a message. Any question on any topic, feel free to type it in and we'll either try and answer it as we go along or we'll come back to it at the end of the session. So today's agenda, we're going to have a quick introduction for ourselves and then for our partners NetSupport, just to get a feel of what they do and also what we do. And then we'll jump into the topic, our main topic of the day, which is safeguarding Microsoft Teams. And then at the end, we'll come back and answer any questions. So again, feel free to ask your questions in the chat box and we'll either come back to them at the end or we'll answer them as we go along. So a bit about ourselves. We're Cloud Design Box, we're a Microsoft partner, and we currently support over 450 schools in the UK and internationally. And those are made up of multi-academy trusts, independent schools, general academies and colleges, but we specialise in SharePoint and Teams for education. So we create mat-wide intranets, so it helps you scale and grow your trust. We can accelerate that digital transformation across the trust by creating that consistency and equality in IT services that you provide to all of the different schools in your mat. So everyone has that one version of the truth to go and access central services, central teams that might span across the different schools, and it's all integrated with Microsoft Teams. So we also create school sites for individual schools, either within a trust or standalone, and we automate all of the classes, the subjects, the departments from the MIS data. And we also use Microsoft School Data Sync, so it's using all the best practices so you can make use of the other Microsoft features like insights and some of the parental features that they're currently working on. We created it as a scalable structure so that it's a place where you can publish information to wide audiences with the communication sites, a secure place for your teams to work together to replace those legacy file servers, and also places for those centralized resources so you can share your resources across all of the different classes you teach every academic year. So we're there to save teachers time, and the spaces for CPD and line management in those department teams as well. We integrate all of this with Microsoft Teams, so we use Viva connections to make your SharePoint intranet easily accessible from Teams. We automate all of those classes, subjects and department teams, and students can actually access those centralized resources without leaving Teams. Those SharePoint central resource areas are available. We staple them into every single class team every academic year automatically. We also create things like student folders within the team, so it's quick and easy access to all of the student work without having to share your documents from OneDrive. So just trying to make it as easy as possible to use. And we have our own Cloud Design Box portal where you can log in, you can view student assignments that have been set inside Teams. So it's great if you're a registration tutor, head of year, boarding house, master. You can look up an individual student and just see what work they've got set for each class that they're a member of, even if you don't teach them. There's also an overview of all the assignments set across the entire school here with our analytics, and there's a place where you can do class cover. So if you needed to quickly inject a teacher into a class on a temporary basis, maybe for a single day to observe a lesson or for the rest of the term, you can do that using the cover manager. And there's also a place where you can create sites and teams with our self-service site creation tool, and that can be delegated to people within the school who might not be SharePoint or Teams admins. And we also provide training, so we're a Microsoft Global Training Partner. Our courses are CPD certified. We've got a range of courses for your staff, both your teaching staff and your office staff, so that you get good adoption across a whole school and you take everybody on that digital transformation journey with you. So I'll now hand over to Dan, our partner from NetSupport, to give you a quick overview of what it is that they do, and then we'll jump into the main topic of the day. So over to you, Dan.
Lovely. Thank you very much for the introduction. I am just going to share my screen and hopefully that will work for everyone. Is that working?
Yep, I can see that.
There it is. Yep.
Lovely. Okay, so thanks for the introduction, guys. Yeah, my name is Dan Kingsley. I am the UK channel manager at NetSupport. So I focus on building our relationships with other companies, great companies such as yourselves. And NetSupport basically provide a range of IT solutions for schools and businesses worldwide. You may be familiar with us, but in case you're not, we started all the way back in 1989. We're specialists in classroom management safeguarding solutions. I've been doing it for a very long time. We've got over 19 million users worldwide, and we also have teams based in the UK, in Germany, America, Canada, and Japan. So whilst we are very successful in the UK, we also have lots and lots of customers internationally. Today, the product I'm going to talk to you about is called Classroom.Cloud. Now, Classroom.Cloud is our latest solution. It kind of is a bit of a mixture of other solutions that we offer. So along with Classroom.Cloud, we do offer a on-premise classroom management tool. We also have an on-premise safeguarding tool with IT asset management, remote support. We also have a nice desktop alerting tool called NetSupport Notify. And a lot of those features have kind of been merged into a single cloud-based platform, which is Classroom.Cloud. It's been around for about 3 years now, and it's been serving us very well. It was a great tool during the pandemic stages as well, because it does support remote learning, being able to monitor students remotely. And still to this day, you know, devices going off-site can still be monitored and managed for lesson basis, even though it's maybe not quite as common as it was a couple of years ago. So the big part about Classroom.Cloud, which I'm going to talk to you today about, is the safeguarding aspect. Now, the safeguarding aspect in this product is a keyword phrase matching module. So essentially any words that are typed, copy and pasted, or in the title of a web page that students search or visit, basically sends an alert to your safeguarding team. So you can bring in all of your safeguarding team and they can look at this single console. You can filter down all the information to see the ones that you want to. And basically all of the phrases are kind of categorized into different severity levels and given a risk score, which I'm going to show you guys in a moment. Everything is device based, so there is a client that sits on these devices, and it basically means that wherever the student types, copy and pastes these potentially harmful phrases and words, we can pick that up. So it's not just on a browser, it is actually everywhere on the device. And as I say, you can also actually monitor devices going off-site as well. There are privacy settings and bits and bobs in there, because I know depending on where those devices sit, if they're personal machines and whatnot, I won't get into that. So yeah, this is how we support schools with managing safeguarding data. Now, it kind of comes before a filter as such. Obviously, most schools will have a filter in place to prevent the access of harmful websites and content, but we're actually alerting you to when people do attempt to do those things, and also away from the web browser as well. So your whole device is monitored. Now, one of the key aspects and one of the reasons for having me here today is to talk about the integration with Microsoft Teams. So really, really great feature with your Microsoft accounts. You know, some schools, I'm sure, possibly have a bit of concern over allowing students to have chats between them, and maybe a concern about what they're talking about and whether it can be monitored. Of course, this product can do that. And the added benefit is that it monitors your whole Teams tenancy. So if someone was to log into their Teams account from an external device that isn't managed with Classroom.Cloud, we can still actually report on any harmful phrases that have been typed into Teams by their logged on username, which is really powerful. Gives you that added confidence that you can allow your students to talk individually with chats, and you can also choose which channels to be monitored. Some you might not want to monitor, especially as some schools will have this enabled for members of staff, but things like SLT chats and whatnot, you probably want to exclude that. We do also integrate with My Concern and CPOMs, two very popular safeguarding solutions where a lot of schools will export that data into. The benefit of having the integration here is that it's much quicker and effective, whereas previously, you know, you've got your phrase match come in and then you've got to manually enter in all of that information to My Concern and CPOMs. We will instead have an option that you can see at the top of each of these screens where you can send the particular alert directly into those systems, which does genuinely make your life a lot easier. I'm going to walk you through the product, basically just give you an overview of how the safeguarding console works. We can set up email alerts as well for some of the higher categorized phrases. I'll show you just where the integration parts lie. I will just put it out there just to start with. I don't have a tenancy actually integrated in my demo environment, but for the purposes of today, it will still show you exactly what it's about. And I've got a couple of examples as well of what it looks like on the other end that I can show you. We also have a nice risk analysis in there, which, as well as giving the words sort of a categorized level of low, medium, high and urgent, we actually do have some additional factors in there to give you an analysis of how risky we deem this. And then also just how you can adjust a lot of the safeguarding settings to suit your own environment, because a lot of the settings are default for what we deem the level they are, but you can obviously tweak and customize a lot of that as well. Just before I start, I just wanted to say as well that anything you do see here, NetSupport, we do offer a range of products. We are going to be exhibiting at the BET show at the end of the month at the London XL. So if you did want to come and visit us and learn some more, you're more than welcome to come see us. You can see in the picture, there's me sitting there in the background. We're also actually the official broadcaster of BET. So if you don't get a chance to go, maybe you can actually tune into the NetSupport radio to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. Right, I am going to jump over very quickly, and this is the Classroom.Cloud website, and this is where members of staff will be basically accessing the portal to deal with their safeguarding phrases. So I'm going to hit sign in here. It's going to automatically sign me in because I've been using it today already, but it is important just to note that when you're signing up, you can use your Microsoft accounts, as would your staff. Basically makes it a lot easier just from a single sign-on perspective, using the same accounts, two-factor authentication and things like that. So this is the main console. This product is available for a free trial download, just to make everyone aware. You can use this product for 30 days completely free of charge. Essentially, you just head over to the website and you can sign up here, put in your details, and you'll get an environment like this. We've got our kind of organization down the side and our different options. This won't necessarily look the same for all of your members of staff, depending on what kind of rights they've been given. Essentially, we've got our organisation at the top level, which can be for a collective of schools in a trust environment, for example. So you can actually centrally manage multiple schools. And then under each school, we've got our users and devices and device groups, safeguarding groups, and a load of settings and bits and bobs in there. So essentially, you're going to pick your users, invite people this way, so your members of staff, choose who your login provider is going to be, so we can basically force them to use their Microsoft account. And then we've got some different roles. So for the purpose of today, we're going to be safeguarding users and safeguarding admins. Essentially, a safeguarding admin is someone who can change the settings behind the scenes with how the safeguarding interacts and customize it, whereas a safeguarding user is simply going to be someone who's dealing with the incoming phrase matches. Now, again, in a trust environment, potentially you can choose what sites people have certain access to, and that will be the respective safeguarding data as well for those sites. So I'll show you that you can filter by site, but I do know that trusts and whatnot will have a sort of a central managed team of DSLs. We do also have classroom management within this product, so you can have your teachers carry out their lessons here, and provide useful tools like being able to see in live time what the students are accessing, restrict the internet and application usage, do surveys and send them messages, remote control their machines and stuff. So that is an additional feature available in this product, but for today's purposes, I'm going to be looking at safeguarding. A site admin is someone who basically is going to be managing devices. An organizational admin is someone who can do absolutely everything across all of your sites. Next, essentially, you're going to get your devices in. As I mentioned, it does require a client to be sat on the machine. So here we've got support for all the different platforms. Very nice and easy to send out. We've got installation guides in there. So with a Windows student or a Chrome student, you can push out the extension or the executable file, and it's basically configured already to this school. Once that service has started, it will appear in our unassigned devices group, ready to be assigned somewhere. That can be assigned for use in the classroom, or once the client has started running, it will be collecting safeguarding data straight away. So as I mentioned, this will look different depending on your role. So as a safeguarding user, I'm only going to see safeguarding and concerns here. Safeguarding is all of the phrase matching that I've kind of covered, and then concerns, which I'll get onto afterwards, is actually where people can report their own concerns directly to the safeguarding team. So if I hit my safeguarding module, this will bring it all up. Apologies for anything inappropriate you might see, but it is safeguarding at the end of the day. So this will show us all of the different phrase matches that have been picked up. They do come through immediately. So as soon as a student types this word or searches for a website with an inappropriate word in it, it comes through very, very quickly. The little number up here shows you how many new phrases there are, because in this column, the status, they all come in as new to begin with. Then when you're dealing with it, they go to in progress. And then once you've made your assessment and done your due diligence, then you can either complete it or put it as a false alarm once you know. Currently, I've got it grouped by user. So this is going to show me everything that April has done across any device in school. These ones have been deleted because they're virtual machines, but it will give you the asset ID of the device. It will show you what school this was at, because again, you could be managing multiple schools centrally. What category was the phrase a part of? So we do have various different categories, which will be a good way to view a lot of the data in a moment. The source of where it was done. So I can see this was done on Bing. I can see if I scroll down what websites, or this one, for example, was on Notepad. So anywhere on these devices. We've got typed and matched. So matched is the actual word that has cropped up in our library as an inappropriate word, and whereas typed is actually a bit more context. So it could be the full sentence they've typed. It could be the full clipboard that they've pasted, but the actual word is highlighted here. That's the one that we're tracking. Then we've got the time of when it was done. So as I say, they do come through immediately, but this is when they actually triggered the phrase. Last updated is a very useful tool for the safeguarding team. So from a DSL's perspective, this will show you in order, you can sort this, which ones have been open the longest without any action. So some might not have been actioned, some have maybe been open for a bit too long. So if you sort it by that column, it's a nice way to ensure that nothing is kind of getting left behind. We've then got our risk analysis. So this is a score out of 100, which I'll go into a bit more detail in a moment, but it's a very nice feature, and a lot of people I know like to sort their phrases by risk. And then finally, we've got any attached media. So we do have screenshots available for high severity and the urgent severity words. So it will take a screen capture as soon as that word has been triggered. We then also, for the urgent phrases, have this great feature. I think it's possibly the best feature, is a video playback. So you will get 25 seconds of video before and 25 seconds of video after this phrase has been triggered, which is really, really powerful. It gives you a lot of context. It also gives you a lot of evidence where a screenshot might not give you as much. And the added benefit of this being a cloud-based solution is you don't have to worry about storing that data anywhere. It's being hosted in Microsoft Azure for you. So this is a quick way to sort of see all of our data. Now, you can obviously have quite a lot of data in here, but we want to make it very easy in the way that you can find what you want to see. So I've got April here, and as I scroll down, I'll see Matt and then Peter. But I could group it by category, for example, and say, let's look at all the bullying terms, then let's look at all the drug terms. I could do it by day, and it will show me all the different terms per day. So really easy to sort of customize the way you're viewing this information. There's also plenty of filters. So a great example would be, we don't want to see things that are completed and false alarm because they're essentially done. We don't need to do any more work on that. So let's apply that. And then those filters will update in a moment. It seems to be having a bit of a wobble. Oh, there we go. We can also filter by the category. So here's all the different categories that we've got. You can select those if you want to view them. The source, so are they typed in Teams? Were they copied? We could just look at the severity levels. We could look at a time and date range as well. And then finally sites. So again, if you're looking at it centrally, you can look at it all as a big collective, or you could do it on a school by school basis. That's up to you. Now we go one step further, which is the search tool. So the search tool will allow us to search either for a particular user, a particular device, a particular word, or even a particular source. So if you're trying to locate something very particular, you can search it in there and it will search all of these columns for that bit of information. Now, if I select one, I'm going to clear the filters and go back to one of these urgent ones. If I click on an urgent setting here, this will bring up a bit more information. So again, we've got what the word was triggered, when it was triggered, what severity level it was, who was the logged on user, what category it's from, the source. You can actually go and visit the website as well. If you don't know what it is, but you want to find out if it's appropriate or not, you can follow the link. It will show you the device they were using at the time and what school they were at. It will also give you a description of what the word means. Now, this is very useful because you can add in plenty of language packs. We're up to, I want to say, 20 different language packs we've got now. We've worked with a lot of international charities, organisations and existing customers of ours to build up this library of phrases and keywords. Now, I did say that Classroom.Cloud is a very new product in the sense that it's been out for a few years now, but we've actually been working on this safeguarding module for a lot longer because it does appear in one of our other products, the on-premise NetSupport DNA. So it's been given a freshen up look and it's easier to use, but we've actually been developing this for a much longer time than 3 years. So it's constantly getting updated. And as I say, if you've got certain demographics in school, you can introduce additional language packs. And the description is very useful for things like foreign languages, acronyms, slang terms and stuff like that, which you're not necessarily going to know what it means.
Just a quick question, Dan.
Sure.
We had a question come in, which I think you may have answered. We have students where English is not the first language. Do you support other languages when detecting safeguarding phrases, and how did they do that?
Yes, we do. I will quickly jump over and show you that, and then I'll come back to this bit. So within our settings, I'm just going to very quickly jump in. If I am editing my safeguarding settings in here, there's quite a lot of bits. I'm going to come back to this in a bit more detail, but there's a language pack option here. So we've got all these different languages that you can introduce to the enabled library going forward, which is really useful. As I say, existing customers report back to us with slang terms and phrases that are common with them, things like Internet Watch Foundation and other charities. And essentially every time Classroom.Cloud is updated, in the background, we're always improving this phrase library. So every time there's a new version released, you get the latest set of safeguarding phrases. Is that okay?
Yeah,
that's great.
question.
And the thing I wanted to check is Welsh in there. I think Welsh. I think I saw Welsh there. Yeah, because you need it for Welsh because we can be quite colourful sometimes.
Well, if you've got any phrases, let us know. We might.
I'll send you a few.
Lovely. So just coming back to where we're looking at this single phrase. Basically, everything comes in as new, as I mentioned, and you can change the status in here. And then below, there is a notes section where the other members of the safeguarding team can see who's been accessing this record. Of course, in the attempt to be as sort of efficient as possible, we don't want lots of people overlapping on workloads. We want this to be an effective system at getting through safeguarding concerns. So being able to see that I've already been dealing with this and I've changed the status and I can leave customized notes there for other people. They know, right, Dan's dealing with this one. Let me move on to another one. The risk analysis I mentioned is a score out of 100, so we do take some extra factors to kind of give it that score. Is a device unsupervised if it's not in a lesson, essentially? So if you've got PCs that are maybe like common rooms or library PCs where they're not actively supervised by a teacher, that's probably where students know that they can maybe get away with things not being monitored. So we would deem that as a slightly higher concern, as a potential sort of sneaky element to what they're doing. Websites and applications can be changed on their risk level as well. So low, medium and high severity websites. Now, the reason that's good is things like social media websites. We would deem those as higher risk because I think students are more likely to come across harmful content, maybe bullying and things like that. So if they search for any of these phrases or type these phrases on a high risk website, they do get a boosted score within the analysis. The actual severity of the word itself, of course. So this one has been boosted probably up to 15 purely on the basis that it's an urgent phrase, but nothing else is really that risky. There are historical incidents as well. So we've got a few variations on this that only appear once they've been matched. But essentially it can be, has a student triggered 3 or more phrases today? Have they triggered 5 phrases from the same category this week? Things like that, because if you've got a student who searches for maybe 5+ drug terms throughout the week, maybe it's not an accident, and maybe that is a little bit more inappropriate and they might be looking into something they shouldn't be, so that would get a higher score. Now here we've got the screenshot, so I can view that and see exactly when the student typed the word, what was going on. And then additionally, there is the video. It does take a little moment to process because it's a 50-second video, but really, really useful feature to have.
So that really lets you pick up the context, I guess, Dan, because otherwise you might be doing some biology and maybe it's okay that you use a certain word, you know, sure. the scientific word for the thing. And so by seeing either side of that with the video, you kind of know that it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. It gives you a lot of context, and sometimes a screenshot, you know, while it's great to have the screenshot, you don't necessarily know what they did after that, and that might be sort of the crucial part, is what they then did after they searched that word. And you could probably quite easily assess from the video if it was an accident or whether it's a kind of deliberate attempt to look at something they shouldn't. So hopefully that's a very useful tool for people. Along the top here, we can export out this information. We can send it as an email directly to someone if it needs to be raised to the powers above. We can also print it out. As I mentioned, there is the option to integrate with CPOMs and My Concern. Unfortunately, I haven't got that available on my system today, but there will be a big button here saying export to either CPOMs or My Concern. You've got those login details already set up, hopefully, to begin with, and then it will simply export majority of this data over into CPOMs and My Concern. I've got an example I can show you at the end, a little screenshot of what it looks like on that end, but it's a huge time saver. And usually in my demonstrations, that's the part that really gets people excited for the product, knowing that they can just send it directly into their existing system. Definitely saves a chunk of time. So that's how we look at our different phrases. And as I say, once it's completed, we can get rid of it. But there are a couple of other nice ways that we can look at the data. So we do have something called a phrase cloud. Now, the phrase cloud, I think is a really good tool, especially when you potentially have a lot of data. Essentially, the bigger the word, the more times that it's going to be triggered. And if I hover over it, it will show you how many times that word has been triggered, and they're all color coded by the different categories down here. Now I can click on this word and it will show me every time that word was triggered, who by, and all the other information. Now, if I was to press view, it opens this window up again like I had before. But we've actually got a queue system, so we can view with the arrows down here. We can sort through the different ones, so it sorts through those 5 phrases in order, and then I could pick this one and go through those. It's just another nice way that people like to view their data. You can still filter on here. So again, you could actually compare phrase clouds across multiple sites and see what the trending topics are, and give you kind of a quick snapshot overview of what people are looking for the most. And if anything stands out particularly, you can sort of say, right, is that something we need to look at a little bit more? Is it potentially dangerous for the students and things like that? So really nice tool. Lots of people like to use this one. On top of that, we do have some nice interactive graphs that you can use. So at the moment, I've got this group by category. And again, I can select, let's have a look at all the drug terms, and it will show me every drug term that was triggered, or the suicide phrases here, and then I can view those, and as I say, I can sort through them each in that little queue. But you can also view these in a variety of charts, which is quite nice. But then I could also do it by user and see the split of different triggers per user. I could do it by school if I'm comparing multiple schools. I could do it by day as well, and it would show me how many phrases I got per day. Not the widest range of data here, but you can imagine that when it's lots of days, you can see which days stood out as maybe lots of concerns coming in. So that's a very quick kind of overview of the safeguarding console and how majority of the DSLs in school will kind of be accessing this information and sorting through it. Now, there are quite a few settings in the background that I'll go into because they might answer some questions that people have. Safeguarding alerts, I mentioned this is about sending out emails for particular phrase matches. Very good way to highlight important ones that are coming in and raise that added kind of alarm if needs be. So if I add an alert, it will allow me to select a user from who has the safeguarding role that we previously set up. And we can basically say any word that is urgent or high severity, and let's say comes under the self-harm, suicide or well-being category, any phrase now that's triggered that meets that criteria will send this DSL an email, and the email will look very similar to the little window I showed you a moment ago with all of the details about who it was, where they were logged on, what they searched for, and it's just very useful to have these. Now you can add multiple people to an alert. You can have as many alerts as you like. You can see I've got plenty here. The really useful thing is that it can be activated and disabled as you like. If you've got one of your DSLs going on holiday for 2 weeks, you don't want them to come back to 2 weeks full of email alerts that have most likely been covered by someone else. So you can disable that and enable it when they return, which is very nice. Back to this little window I showed you a moment ago. This includes the detection sensitivity. So how accurately are we matching these phrases? Now, if it's 100%, it's like case sensitive, has to be exact. If we turn it down, it will allow for slight margin of error, slight spelling mistakes in some of the words that will allow you to capture them where people have just slightly spelt it wrong. There's not really a perfect answer for this one. It is a little bit kind of trial and error. You know, if you think things are slipping through the net a bit, you might have to turn it down and capture some of those slight spelling mistakes. If you feel like you're getting lots of false positives that aren't quite correct, then you can turn it up a bit and get more accurate results. Language packs I mentioned in there, so we've got all the different ones that you can choose from. We've got Welsh right down the bottom there for you. Here are the sources that we are tracking. So you can turn them off. I'm not sure necessarily anyone would actually want to turn them off, but it is an option. And also the recording length of the video. Again, you're not hosting the data yourself as such, it's going into the cloud. So I'd probably recommend leaving it at the full 25 seconds. This is where we've then got our app and website list. So in here, I can customize the risk levels of certain websites. As you can see, an example here of TikTok or any other sort of social media websites, I'm going to deem those as high risk or potentially medium risk. And you can actually choose certain websites to not be monitored. So an example that we would use is something like Talk to Frank, for example. We could choose that to be not monitored. And that's quite a nice one because potentially if a student is looking at a website like that, it might actually be for their own support at home or outside of school, maybe something like Childline. So if you don't want to monitor those, it kind of gives your students that privacy that they can view those things without being tracked as an inappropriate website or something like that. So this is all customizable. You can add in your own websites, you can change the default ones, etc. We can actually see the full library we've got here. Now, again, there is a lot of phrases in here that you probably don't want to see. But you can go in here and you can customize all of the words as well. So I can take certain words and I can change the severity level. That means obviously they get a higher risk score. The high severity ones will get a screenshot and the urgent ones will get the video capture. Now I could filter this down and do it by category. And I could say, you know what, potentially there's a bit of a problem in school with drugs. So we could change all of the drug phrases to urgent instead of high. And that will again give you the video capture, a higher risk score. So all of this is obviously set by default from our own personal opinion, but it's kind of something that happens with safeguarding solutions. You kind of grow with it and customize it to your liking. There will be certain words that you maybe deem more or less appropriate than we do, and this is an easy way to do so. There are also your own phrases, so you can add in your own phrase, give it a description, stick it under a certain category and give it a priority level in there as well. So slang terms, things that students are maybe saying that you'd want to track, you can put that in there. Time settings is very useful for when we're actually monitoring these devices. Now, school-owned devices, you're probably going to have them on 24/7 because it's a in-school device. But if you do have a system in school where it's like a student bring their own personal device, things like that, you would probably change this to only be recording whilst they're in school during school hours. Probably going to be some communication with parents involved there, but that is an option for supporting off-site devices. We don't want to be monitoring them necessarily outside of school times. We could put term dates in there as well, very important, because of course it could be Tuesday midday during half term. We don't want students to be monitored during those times, and also allowed IP addresses and wireless networks, so where they're based. This is the same system we've got for the classroom management when connecting to students in a classroom format. Of course, we don't want people accessing students' devices when they're potentially at home and things like that. So we do have those privacy settings in there for anyone who's possibly concerned about monitoring offsite devices. The next part is concerns. So as I mentioned down here, we've got safeguarding, which is all of the phrase matching. Underneath that, we've got concerns, and this is where people can raise concerns directly to the safeguarding team. We can enable a feature called report a concern. So if we enable that, it will be a desktop shortcut for students. They will essentially be able to write a message and select a member of the safeguarding team that they want to send their concern to. Could be about themselves, it could be about another student that they're concerned about, and giving them the choice of who they want to send that concern to is quite nice, because some students maybe have a particular relationship with a member of staff that they trust, and they'd like to send a concern directly to them, so they can do that. So you can choose which contacts from your safeguarding roles are going to be available in here to contact. And then on top of that, we've got something called safeguarding resources. I think this is quite a nice feature. It is optional, of course, if you want to add it in, but basically it's another desktop shortcut, and it gives students access to a load of contact details for local charities, organisations, things like Childline, Talk to Frank, Samaritans, all those kind of places. So if at the very least students aren't comfortable talking about problems at home to someone in school, we'd like to think that they can at least reach out to an external organisation that can provide them some support. So I think that's generally everything on the safeguarding front. Hopefully I didn't go too fast and everyone kind of got an idea of how this could be used and how it's effective. Any questions from you, gents, or have we got any more questions to answer?
Yeah, we did. We did have a question in the beginning. So you showed us how to monitor sort of the school devices and add them to the system. Yeah. How does it work with personal devices where they might be using Microsoft Teams, but it's not a school-owned or school-tracked device?
So it does depend, I guess, how the schools have got it set up. I mean, we've worked with a variety of schools. If students are in a system where they're bringing their own personal machines to be used in school, then they would have to have a client installed on the device in order to track this data and connect to the lessons if you're using classroom management. But that is kind of a discussion more for the school, parents and students to agree on. But it is a facility that's available, and I know certain schools do have that set up.
Because I know that some schools are worried about using Microsoft Teams because obviously kids can log in on their phone and they can use it at home.
And I think that's where the Microsoft integration, it really is kind of the perfect solution in that sense, because as I say, it's kind of hooked directly into the tenancy. We're not therefore tracking on a device because it's a personal machine or a mobile phone that isn't a device that we're going to be monitoring, but the user accounts within Teams are still being monitored, which means that. So in this sense, it says April has triggered this alert on this device. It will instead say what channel she types that in on. Obviously, we won't have knowledge of what device that is, but April has still done it on her own Teams login. So that's where it's really powerful, and it kind of protects your team environment even from external access on unmanaged devices, which is really powerful.
So even if that, you know, if you're at home and you're using grandma's machine, you know, or dad's laptop or whatever,
Yeah.
nothing to do with the school at all. Never
Nope.
been anywhere near the school building, but just the fact that you're logged into Microsoft Teams and you're logged in using your school account, anything dodgy that you say while you're using that school system in Teams, that will get triggered. Presumably things because you don't need the client to be installed to make that happen. It just happens.
No, we're hooked into the Teams environment as such. Of course, you won't get things like screenshots. You won't get knowledge of the device and where they were. It will just simply say who the logged on user was, what they typed and when it was, and also in what channel, because you can choose, as I mentioned, what channels you do and don't want to monitor. So there probably will be a couple that you don't want to, but for the majority of student chats, you probably will have that enabled.
That's it, and that should be enough. And okay, maybe you don't get the video recording, but in that channel, in that message, you'd see what had been said previously, and you'd be able to see what had been said afterwards. So you just have to go into the team and have a look at that, and you'd soon find out what the context was.
And I think that's what's so great about this product is, firstly, it is really easy to use once you've had a little go and explore with it. And it kind of highlights as well that potential gaps some schools have where maybe you've just got a filtering system in place. And whilst a filter system is great, it will prevent people from hopefully accessing some of the harmful content. It doesn't protect the whole device. And that's where something like this comes in play to protect everywhere on the device, your whole team's environment, and not just what they may be searching for on the internet. And yeah, it's just a really nice, well-rounded package. And I know it's not for today's purposes, but there are other features within the product, such as classroom management for all of your teachers in their lessons. We've got power management in here, so you can bulk shut down devices and schedule that shutdown. You can remotely support machines as well. I mean, I can very easily jump in here to my devices, find all of my students and staff that are in school, and I can choose to remote control them all. I've actually got a class sat here, so I'm not going to go into it today because I know we're probably a little bit short on time, but there is a full teacher management console in here as well, so a really well-rounded kind of package for people.
Fantastic, because that's what I remember NetSupport for. What was that idea of, you know, you could take, the teachers could take over the kids' machines and the kids would be like, what's going on?
Yes, absolutely.
He can see everything. He's omniscient. But obviously things have moved on. Everything's in the cloud. So much of the content now is going to be in places like Teams. So the fact that you've got a really great solution to the Teams challenge, I think is enough. That would be enough. I'd already be sold. But then the fact that you can do all the other stuff that you used to be able to do as well. And the fact that it doesn't rely on local networks anymore. Those networks can happen across a WAN and it would still work, I presume.
Yeah, and I mean, it is really quick. We've made it very effective in the way we're using WebRTC. It kind of allocates the fastest route to connecting to devices and things like that to make it as efficient as possible. So it is really great. And obviously from a classroom management point of view as well, it does again integrate with existing systems like Microsoft, and where you've got lessons set up in Teams or in Microsoft Data Sync potentially, you can actually pull all of that data directly into classroom.cloud and have your teachers be provided their lessons pre-populated, which for anyone, you know, maybe a little bit concerned about how hard it is to migrate to a new solution, we've made it as easy as possible to set up in that sense, because you can just pull directly from your existing systems.
That's great, because as part of our product, we happen to use School Data Sync to push all that data into the class teams and make the class teams. So that ties up really nicely.
Really cool. Do we have any more questions at all?
No, I think that's it. So thank you for your time, Dan. That's been really useful.
For having me. I really do appreciate it.
What's the best way they can get in touch with you if they want to find out more information?
You can come directly to the NetSupport website. As I say, there are sort of free trial links and bits and bobs. I can also maybe post some information for you guys to share just about my contact information if they want to.
Okay, great. So we've got a follow-up email, so we'll send the recording and all the contact details afterwards, and you can share that obviously with your colleagues as well. But yeah, thanks for your time, Dan. That's been really useful. And thank you, Darren, for joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Lovely. Thanks again. Take care.